Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to the conclusion of Planet FPL Correspondent Week Day 3. And on episode 12, I'm delighted to be joined by our Crystal Palace correspondent, Ruaidhri McLaughlin-Dowd. How are you, Rory?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you very much. It's been quite a while since we spoke to you, actually. I think you were last on COTC in the international break at the end of March. And my goodness, you had a good run at the end, mate.
Yeah, that was a bit of a relief to be honest, because we looked like we were slipping in again as we did the previous season. But yeah, Glasner came in, and I think the first 3 or 4 games it was a bit mixed, but we had players come back from injury, from memory. So yeah, I was on for the Forest game, I
Yeah.
think, and then subsequent to that, we went on that great run and we won 6 of the last 7, I think, including quite a few good scalps in there. I think. I seem to remember you were telling me that we had the most difficult run in or one of the most difficult run-ins on your fixture ticker
You did.
at
That's
one
part why I
point.
never scheduled you towards the end.
Yeah. So I think over that run we ended up being fifth, which shows the sort of quality of opposition we were doing it against. I think Newcastle, Liverpool away, and Villa at home were in there. And City was a bit. It was 4-2 to them, but it was a game where they had to go and we had to go. And I think that's how we play now, basically, with Glasgow. I think is a bit more on the front foot, very different from Roy, where I think we were showing a bit too much respect to a lot of teams, even mid-table teams that are probably comparable in quality to us. We were like, okay, you can have the ball for a bit, and then maybe we'll build something. We were very, very on the back foot. Whereas with Glasner, I think there's a quote that you brought up a few times where he was saying, "I don't want to come and play for a point away from home. He
Yeah.
wants to go out and try and win games."
Yeah, I
And
think I can't remember where you drew. In fact, it might have even been after the draw at Forest.
maybe,
But I think that might have been the second time. And he seemed really confused in an interview afterwards. He was like, "Oh, I've been told a draw away from home's good, so okay."
yeah. Well, you worry who's telling him that maybe if the board are like, "Oh yeah, it's okay getting a point," because I think he's got almost more ambition than some other people at the club. To be
Yeah,
fair.
I think that's well summed up actually. Yeah. I think he wants to achieve on that Forest pod, we actually said you might need three or four more points to be absolutely safe. And that will seem remarkable to people thinking about now. But thinking
Yeah.
back now, considering how you played, what people expect now, you must be delighted to have Glasner, mate.
Yeah, very much so. Especially if you think a couple of weeks after that, I think there were quite a few clubs looking for managers. I think he was in the conversation for the Bayern Munich job.
I
And
think he was
if he,
I think they approached you, mate.
yeah, and we just said 100 million or go away, basically, which I, I mean, I don't know if that had anything to do with what he did at Palace, but I mean, it probably did have a bit, but he's always obviously widely respected within Germany for what he did with Frankfurt. And quite a few other clubs. If we'd waited till this summer, I think you and I discussed this the previous season when we rehired Roy. We were saying, oh, this is it's okay if it's a holding pattern for the short term, but if it's something that we do kind of it, it's good if there's a payoff at the end of it. This cannot be like ad hoc
Yeah.
solution to ad hoc solution to, and Glasner probably was that payoff. And in a sense, it's good that he came in when he did because if we'd waited till this summer, I think he would have gone to a better club. I,
Yeah, absolutely spot on. When we said last year it feels like you're wasting time and stuff like that, the one caveat was if they know who they want and they're going to get it, then we accept why this is happening. And Oliver Glasner absolutely feels like that. When big jobs become available, he's going to get linked with them very, very quickly, mate. And I think
Probably,
you've
yeah.
already seen that. It does mean that there's some high hopes and expectation for what you can achieve this year. You have lost a key player though and potential departures feel like it's been a theme of your summer, unfortunately. Firstly, Michael Olise's move to Bayern Munich. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, that is the downside of playing well at the end there, partly when it didn't matter, is that there's been a lot of interest in the players. And yeah, hopefully Glasner being there means that they will show a bit more ambition because he will demand that of them. But yeah, Lisa, I mean, he was always going to be difficult to keep hold of. I actually thought he might be the one most likely to stay because he is the youngest and he had a bad injury hit season. So I thought some of the big clubs might look at that and go, with the injuries and everything, maybe it's not worth triggering the buyout clause. We can wait 12 months. But I think the competition, I think Chelsea were in for him. There were a few others, and then Bayern came in. And it's difficult when you're talking about those super clubs. I mean, there's sort of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man United, and then Bayern are sort of just a tier below that with like Juventus and Paris Saint-Germain and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to
Bayern
say,
won't
kind of.
think they're a tier below, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So, but they're obviously buying a lot of players from English football, which is a weird trend. for them. But yeah, I am glad he hasn't stayed in the Premier League as well because we don't have to play against him next season. I think he got 10 goals and 6 assists from what 14 starts or something last season. Yeah, 10 goals and 6 assists in 14 games. So yeah, he when we're talking about replacing him, it's obviously very difficult in terms of quality. But if you have someone who's maybe if if Elise is a 10 out of 10, you can get someone in who's 7 or 8 out of 10. But if they can play 38 games, then in quite a few of those games it will be an upgrade because they'll actually be available.
Yeah, I mean that's always been a downside of him. Is actually getting him fit and available regularly enough for you. Absolutely brilliant footballer though. Feels unstoppable when he's absolutely at his best. He might not be the only departure. To timestamp this, it is very early on Wednesday morning, August the 7th. Heavy links with Marc Guehi to Newcastle. And I think when you hear things like Ebe Eze's name being tagged with Manchester City, that also causes alarm. Do you expect both of those two players to be with you when we get to the end of the transfer window?
I'm a little bit more optimistic on Eze, but they've just had a load of money coming for Julian Alvarez, probably. I mean, I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, but it looks like it. They might have a bit more change. And they looked at them last summer and they ended up getting Nunes from Wolves, who didn't necessarily do the job. I guess I would say Eze is more of a second striker, or a number 10, or they might use him as a winger. I'm mostly worried for him that he'll get used like he did for England and ends up playing left wing back somewhere or something. But he, I think, needs to be in central areas. I think he's the one that's more difficult to replace because Gehi obviously is he's our best defender, but he didn't play under Glasner, and a lot of people aren't sort of
Hmm.
taking that into account when they look at our stats. He played the last game as a central midfielder against Villa. I think he played like 75 minutes of that game, and the game before he came off the bench and played a little bit. But our defense, I think, under Glasner was like fourth for XG conceded, and Gehi wasn't really part of that. And it looks like we've got someone lined up to replace him. The fact that we haven't really got anyone lined up to replace Eze is a little bit of a worry because he does seem to have a buyout clause, and if the money comes in, and that's something could be triggered on the last day of the window. You know, with 5 minutes to go, someone could just trigger that, and then we just don't have a player. So that's a little bit of a worry. But at the moment, I think I haven't actually got Eze in my game week 1 team for fantasy football, if we're looking at it from that perspective. And I think if he goes to City, he becomes a lot less of an asset.
Yeah, just by virtue of going into the crowd and actually being a little bit more expensive than all the other 6.5 options. My club's been linked as well. I guess, like you say, a little bit as with Elise as well, although we understand certainly going to Bayern. If the release clause gets triggered, you're helpless, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those release clauses have always been quite opaque to us
Yeah,
in terms of,
we understand they're complicated, right?
yeah, I think it's like one fee to get in the door, and then you have a negotiation about what the other fee is, and there's like a maximum fee or something like that. I think it might also just be Champions League clubs, and might be a different clause for Champions League clubs to non-Champions League clubs, and who knows? I think I'd worry with Spurs. I mean, wouldn't he just be doing the same thing that Madison does, just with a bit more ball carrying?
Go in the team instead of Madison, mate.
Yeah, well, based on what I heard from you and Ricky the other day, yeah. Yeah, he probably is an upgrade on Madison the way he performed at the end of last season, but the first 15 games or so, Madison was all right. I mean, they play the same position is the point I'm making. Don't play Eze on the wing.
No, I wouldn't want him to. I think what I would say is if he ends up at Tottenham, it looks like Sonny's going to play on the left. So I don't particularly think that would be a problem unless Tottenham have identified, look, can't get him. But they could
Eze
play
full starting
together, Eze and
would be
Madison. Like he
interesting.
plays Madison and Kulusevski together essentially quite a bit. So
Yeah.
one could be an 8, one could be a 10.
Yeah, but with Kulusevski, it's different, isn't it? Because he's sort of left-footed and likes being in that half space rather than the other half space.
Yeah, but I mean, he's been used quite a bit, certainly in the early pre-seasons, the left-sided 10 as well,
Yeah.
actually, in Madison's position at times. So yeah, listen, Eze he'd get in and he'd get into where he wants to play. I think I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Yeah.
We'd have to get him first. It's not to say we would because Tottenham meeting release clauses is
Yeah, you're not.
that that's no guarantee of ever having. I think the more scary one for you would be if City decide they want him.
Yeah.
It's game, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much impossible to say to someone, no, don't go and win the league or something like that. I think, I mean, when are those charges? When are they being heard? You can say you think you've won the league, but then you haven't, maybe. maybe might
It's
end up
worth
a League Two
saying.
player, Ebs,
I
don't go.
mean, you won't have heard it yet, but Johnny said Johnny was suspicious that City wouldn't spend the Alvarez money.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a weird one. They haven't been particularly active in the transfer window, and their squad probably needs a bit of a revamp based on the age of some of the key players. But yeah, they haven't been too active. Don't know why that is.
You did mention about obviously not having Eze at the start in FPL. I just because of this, I couldn't go there personally. He's a player
Mm.
identified quite quickly as being a player. I just don't want to go there with these sort of
Yeah.
rumors going about. If something happened where suddenly drops and he signed a new contract or something, would you want to go straight in?
Possibly. I've got Kamada, and I'm sure we'll talk about him later on. I think he's going to be someone who basically does everything Eze does from open play. So it's just the kind of taking set pieces and penalties thing. You go on solvers, Eze is very high among midfielders. He's like seven or eight because of the fixtures, but I don't think the fixtures are as easy as they look. Um, from an attacking perspective, I think they're actually probably a little bit better from a defensive perspective. I mean, I'm not going to tell anyone not to get Eze. I think he's a brilliant player, and he can return against any opposition. I mean, yeah, he's got fantastic long shots, free kicks, penalties. So yeah, I can't. What's he? 7.5,
Seven.
7. Yeah, he's definitely worth getting in at 7. I just haven't got him because I've got a ridiculous draft with fallen down Salah. So
It's certainly listen. Ebe is at 7 million. I understand why the ownership is consistent and there because that's a great price for him, no doubt about it. And he deserves to be above that group of 6.5. So I don't think that's in question. I guess one question would be, would you think he starts game week 1? Is that an automatic for you?
well, I think they're back today actually on
Okay.
Wednesday. I think with signing Sarr and then we've still got Schluppernay at the club, I'm not 100% sure he will start. But having said that, we won't have Mateta, so he might think I'm starting Edouard, so I have to start Eze. He won't play 90 minutes if he does start because he hasn't been back for the full preseason. I'm not 100% that he will start. I think it might be Kamada and probably Ayew off Edouard, and then Eze will come on the last 20 minutes, half an hour. But there's
Does,
that uncertainty there, which will put people off for the game week 1.
does this all make kind of setting expectations quite difficult for the season with all this
Yeah.
speculation? Because obviously, if Eze goes, I guess your hopes for the season are a little bit different. Because obviously your form towards the end of last season, I guess in your heart you're thinking challenge for Europe, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to gauge. I mean, we're talking about Glasner and how he's changed the way we play. I think we've seen a few teams, no offense to some of the other teams in the league, but teams who we would say have worse teams than us go and do something a bit more than us. Like for example, Leeds when they came up and they finished, would they finish eighth or something? And they had a decent team, but it wasn't actually that good, and they actually improved their team and got worse. But they had Bielsa and they came up and they went and they had a go. And to an extent, when you have a manager that does that, you are just more optimistic about things, and you probably get more from certain games just by not showing so much deference. If we'd spoken 2 weeks ago, I would have been a lot more optimistic than I am now. But then maybe if we spoke again in 2 weeks' time, I might be more optimistic because realistically, we've got I think it's 50 plus million in for Olise, which works out about 42 million profit. We've got whatever's coming in for Guehi looks like it's probably north of 65, and however much of that comes up front. We've lost Eze as well, that might be another 60. The amount of money we've got coming in, we'll probably sign 2 or 3 players. So it is just now at this particular point on the 7th of August, very difficult to gauge what where we'll be because we'll probably spend another 70 plus million.
Are we sure? Because the only reason I say that is I know there's been a bit of concern about the ownership behind the scenes a little bit, and also we know that the development of the main stand is now going to go ahead as well. So that's going to take some of the finances away, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the manager would have signed up for that. Basically, I think if he knew that that was the case, it could transpire to be the case. I don't think so. The main stand development was originally forecast to be 100 million. Now it's supposed to be 150 million just because of the inflation. But the thing is, when our owners are all private equity people, so all of their assets would have had inflation as well. So for some of them, they might not be too much of a worry if they were in a different industry that maybe inflation damaged more. But when in finance, if you've got a diversified diversified portfolio, you'll probably be fine financially. So I think they'll probably be okay for that. I don't think they'll be using the money from the players to finance the stand. We've got Kamada, Charlie Riad in, who looks like they'll be good. And then for Guehi, it looks like we've got Lacroix lined up from Wolfsburg. So I do think they will get another attacking midfielder and then probably some depth at wing back from here.
Yeah, I take it you're assuming Gay's going to go at this stage.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 90% certain. It's just whether he goes to Newcastle or goes somewhere else. I think another club might be waiting in the wings to sort of challenge them for him, which would obviously suit us because he hasn't got a buyout clause. So a bidding war would suit us. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got 2 years left.
It's difficult
So
to foresee who that would be at the moment.
yeah, I suppose because
I
Man
think
United went and
a
got
few of us have
Euro.
mentioned Liverpool a few times, but it doesn't seem any signs of it.
Yeah, but they are, I think Liverpool are one of the big teams that's in a decent position with regards to financial fair play compared to some of the competitors. I think it's just a question for them whether they think they could get someone cheaper who would be an understudy for a couple of years and then be ready to step in when Van Dijk moves off. Whereas Guehi would want to start now, you know.
Mention these fixtures, you think might be better, did you say, for the defensive players? Defensive players,
For the defensive players, I think is a little
defensive
bit
players.
better because there's a few there. I mean, yeah, I was looking at it and you look at it and compare it relative to a lot of people put up fixture difficulty ratings. You've got one as well, and I think our fixtures look okay. But on we're playing against three teams with new managers. So we've got West Ham, Chelsea, and Leicester have all got new managers come in. So that can give teams a little bit of a boost. And then three teams who play, okay, maybe low blocks, definitely with Cooper and Deitch, and then possibly Lopetegui isn't necessarily the most free-flowing attacking manager as well. So we've got maybe some slightly low scoring games to begin with, I think, probably.
But have you watched Chelsea lately, mate?
Yeah, yeah, to be fair. But yeah, the others will be like that. Brentford keep things quite tight and they're quite an intelligent club. And then Leicester will probably be a bit more solid than they were in the Championship just because they got Cooper in.
Well, that's why I asked that because I think when you look at the first six, you're drawn to look at Chelsea and Manchester United as the names as the difficult ones in there. But United gave up how many shots last year? And you beat
Yeah.
them 4-0 and could have beaten by more during that run in last year. Chelsea, as just mentioned, given up plenty of chances. I think there's others will see that the other way. I
Yeah,
think all this
possibly.
is really good offensively. I mean, Tom Med is quite concerned about Brentford defensively at the moment,
Right.
going into open day with like Henry and Hickey still not available and stuff. And West Ham conceded 60, 65 plus goals or something silly last
Yeah.
season.
We beat them
So
3-1 last week as well.
I think a few people would see that differently. Like the way you play now, you should, if you particularly if you've still got an Eze, you should overpower an opponent like Leicester.
Yeah,
I think.
possibly. I think maybe the going at it and having a lot of momentum. I think we won't go into games and be passive and try and nick things now. So maybe I'm looking at things still through a little bit of a negative Palace, typical Palace kind of view. But yeah, I mean, in terms of scoring goals, Edouard has looked good pre-season. Kamada's looked good pre-season. But then, yeah, if we have Eze, Kamada, and Edouard on the pitch, yeah, we'll probably will create quite a few chances. But I can equally see that being an attack which maybe doesn't necessarily set the world alight until we get Mateta back and maybe with another signing and attacking midfield.
Okay. I did notice one interesting quirk for your fixtures, which is possibly worth a little bit of longer term thinking. I was looking at your home fixtures. Between game week 5 and game week 20, your home fixtures are Manchester United, Liverpool, Tottenham, Fulham, Newcastle, Manchester City, Arsenal, Southampton, Chelsea. So between 5 and 20, you basically play all of the expected top eight bar Chelsea, not by Chelsea, by Aston Villa at home, who you scored five
Yeah.
against, obviously on the final day. Now with the Villa games and the United games, you've shown what the capability is now, though. But it's something to bear in mind that there's a real cluster of the most challenging fixtures are all at home together, nearly in succession.
Yeah, when you put things like that, it does sound quite worrying. I think,
I say that more from a fantasy perspective, not as a Crystal Palace worry.
yeah, yeah, maybe. We were quite good at home. So last season we played in the run-in. Obviously, Man United were fairly poor when we played them, beat them 4-0. Villa were on the beach. We were beaten 5-0. We beat Newcastle at home, and Newcastle were still playing at that point in time. City came, it was 4-2. We went 1-0 up, hit the crossbar. De Bruyne decided to be world class, and then we missed a decent chance in the second half. But we went sort of toe to toe with them, and if a few things had gone a different way, like a few bounces of luck had gone another way, like I think Haaland's goal to put them ahead was a cross that came in and took a massive deflection and then landed at him. So it's like we will perform well against those teams, even if we do like at home, we will put up a fight against them,
I mean,
basically, I
we're
think.
saying we haven't even mentioned yet. We basically finished Liverpool's title challenge.
Yeah, they had a bit of a run after they played us. Yeah, that was probably the high point. It was either that or the Newcastle game, I think, for the run in was probably our high point, our best performance.
Not beating
And
Manchester United 4-0 at home.
no, because they were very
I mean, yeah.
because it's 2023 Man United or 2024 Man United, isn't it? It's not.
Okay. Give us some of the details on these new signings. Start with your new centre back, please, mate.
Yeah, so looking at him statistically, I think what stood out in La Liga is his passing ability. So he's a
This is
left-sided
Chaddy
centre
Riad
half.
we're talking about
Yeah, yeah,
comparative.
sorry, Chadi Riad. He was at Betis. So we did this before when we got Richards in. We got Richards in. He was on loan at Hoffenheim, but Bayern basically owned his contract and then decided he probably wasn't good enough to be a Champions League defender, but we went and got him from them. Riad was at Barcelona. He came through at Barcelona and went on loan to Betis. They had a buy clause of like 5 million or something, and we came in and offered them above that to just trigger the buy clause, and then we'll buy him off them. He looks like a very good player. He looks physically imposing, solid. I watched as soon as he signed for us, he was playing for Morocco, like an end of season friendly for them, and he scored a goal from a corner. So he's a big lad. I think he's like 6'3", but he looks very good on the ball and he's left-footed, and we haven't got another left-footed centre half really. So he
But
looks good.
obviously, he didn't play for you under Glasner, as you'd already said. But Guehi obviously always played left of Andersen when you played the back four previously. So is this the Guehi replacement?
I don't think so. I think as so there's a guy we've pretty much been linked with all summer who's got a year left at Wolfsburg, and I think when Gehi goes, we'll probably get him in. His name's Maxence Lacroix, and but I think he plays right of the three. Richards,
After the way you pronounce that, no one else wants to attempt it. Makes it sounded good. Is
well,
it
he's going to
French?
be, yeah,
You must be.
but yeah. Well, on all the Palace podcasts, they're calling him Lacroix, which I think is probably like
Oh,
Louisiana
LaCroix, yeah,
French or
yeah.
something. Yeah, but yeah. So I think Lacroix will come in and play right centre back, and then it will be between Richards and Riad for the left-sided centre half spot, and then Anderson will just be there as a central centre half. He's been linked with moves away as well, by the way, Anderson, the last
Yeah.
couple of
Well,
yeah,
unfortunately, I think you nailed it on the head quite near the start. It was like it was almost the worst time to have a good run
yeah,
because it didn't. I mean, listen, it obviously got you away from trouble and you had a very exciting and very enjoyable finish to the season. But all it did was just put a spotlight on you.
yeah.
Um, where there's always a danger for a club like yours. I do have sympathy for it. It's like you're trying to break through a ceiling. We used to discuss with Mig quite a lot. It's like, what do Palace want to be? And you look at
Yeah.
the last 2, 3 months, you're like, whoa, Palace look like they want to be a team that's going to challenge for Europe. It's like when you get close, and you've got good players there. Like, at least they can go and play for anyone. So can Eze. Gay gets into nearly all teams as a centre back.
I
Like
haven't
you
even
are.
mentioned Mateta.
I mean, we'll get on to Mateta. I mean, just the astonishing change in form. Talk to us about the Ismail Sarr signing. Different profile to Olise, right?
Yeah, it's been a bit controversial among a lot of our fan base because of obviously the stuff that happened with Idrissa Gueye when he was at Paris Saint-Germain. And we had Kouyaté on our books at that time as well. We did try and keep Kouyaté as well, so it's not as if the club has a particularly strong stance on these issues, and it's a little bit disappointing for quite a few people. Having said that, he's someone that Dougie Freedman seemed to want for about 5 years. I think we wanted him before he went to Watford. We were linked with him. So I think he's someone that Dougie's always wanted. Look, he's a player who everyone knows what he can do. When Watford were pretty much already relegated, I think they beat Liverpool 3-0 in a season that Liverpool were sort of, I think they were had already won the
I
league
don't, I don't,
basically.
I don't think that's the year they went down. But yeah,
Oh right, okay.
Liverpool were unbeaten at that stage. Yeah, were the first
Yeah, and
team to beat them.
him just running in behind absolutely tore him apart. And we know he's a player who's got that ability. I don't think he's ever put it together, and he's 26 now. So there are some question marks about that. I don't think he'll start for us as the because the system we play, we don't really have wingers. So it's two number 10s behind a striker. He would probably be one of those number 10s or potentially a backup wing back to Munoz sometimes. So maybe also sometimes a backup number 9, depending on injuries and who's available and stuff like that. So I think he's brought in to be a kind of, I don't know if I want to say the next iteration of sort of Schlupp and AU to be that sort of utility player who moves around and plays multiple different positions and can put in the hard graft. But I don't think he'll be the focal point for our attack. Like if we lose Eze, I'd imagine we'll go out and spend 40, 50 million on someone. So
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I was thinking with Sarr is that going to get in the way of Munoz a bit?
uh,
But
he
but,
he
but
he won't start. I mean, if
yeah.
if Munoz is fit, he'll play 38 games.
All right, that's
But
good to
but
know for people.
it does mean that we probably won't sign someone who will get in Munoz's way. If Sarr's the backup there, if we do sign a backup wing back, it will probably be a left wing back. So that'll probably be more of signing someone who's depth for Mitchell, who's had to play every game for about 4 years. So
Okay. Talk to us about Daichi Kamada. This is a player that Glasner's worked with before as well, right?
yeah, and he's played Champions League football. I think it was at Lazio when we signed him. He was at Frankfurt. He's been our best signing. He's incredible. He's in my team. He's 5.5 million. He'll do everything Eze does in open play. He's a very intelligent player. He's almost like it's a strange comparison, but for us, just in the way that he was playing, he's like what Gallagher did for us, essentially, in that his pressing and intensity off the ball is very, very smart. He never takes more than 2 or 3 touches and he shifts the ball along, which I think is something that we're going to do a lot more this season because Wharton's like that as well, and Doucoure can do that where you're just shifting the ball around to change the sort of focal point of the attack to try and see if there's something open. He's very intelligent and arrives in the box quite late, often arrives onto the edge of the box and has a shot. I think he will be a very good player for us, to be honest. I think he at 5.5, I think he's probably the main under the radar FPL asset for us this season.
That's interesting. Been a lot of talk 5.5. You Hudson-Odoi, your Minter. You prefer Kamada, yeah? You've obviously got the insight of seeing Palace in pre-season.
Yeah, I like Hudson-Odoi. Minter is one he's played pre-season and he scored a few good goals going on onto his left foot. I think I saw him mostly against Japanese teams. So it's like, what sort of level is that actually at in terms of comparison of
Hold
players
on.
coming from the
What
Eredivisie?
nationality is Kamada?
Yeah, but he's not been playing in Japan. He's been playing in Italy. He's been playing in Germany. It's not coming from the
That's good though.
Japanese
You've
league.
been
It's
playing West Ham and Wolves. Don't worry about it, mate.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So Kamada is, I think he's going to be pretty good. Hudson-Odoi is one who is a fantastic player on his day, but he again hasn't really put it together necessarily so much in terms of forming for 38 games or so. I'd put him above them, but obviously I'm a Palace fan.
You would therefore obviously Kamada over Sarr
Yeah, definitely.
without a doubt.
Kamada's
Okay,
going to start. Kamada is definitely going to start for us. I don't think Sarr will necessarily start that many games.
okay, that's interesting. Who's going to start in goal?
Henderson. I think I've seen today Johnson's linked with moves away, which for us makes sense, because he's signed on a free. So anything, if you buy someone on a free, you sell him, it's pure profit, isn't it? For the FFP books and everything like
Forest
that.
aren't going to buy Johnston, are they? I can see that already.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then just make 3 goalkeeper subs a game to give them all minutes. No, it'll probably go to Southampton, I think, is the link today, which would be interesting, I think, because he would do well there and he'd be good for them. But he's been linked with a few clubs. I think that from his perspective, he was obviously in the England squad, and when he was away on international duty, that's when he got injured, which then meant he missed the Euros. So he would have been the one in instead of Henderson. Would have been very different maybe than Henderson would be linked with moves away. But I think the amount of money we spent on Henderson, probably what he's on, having come from United, I think we will probably keep Henderson and Johnston will probably be the one who moves on.
Who would you rather?
Well, it's difficult to say because if you can
That's a
get,
personal question, not a fancy question.
I would always want a steady Eddie in goal, but Henderson's capable of much better saves. Johnston fills me with a lot more confidence as a goalkeeper because I know vaguely what he's going to say. Save. Henderson can cut the ball out the top corner, but can also throw one in his own goal sometimes. So I would rather have Johnston, but yeah, that's more personal preference. I guess Henderson's got a higher ceiling, to be honest.
Isn't it also a danger with Henderson though for a goalkeeper? And I realise Johnson's been injured recently as well, but Henderson does get quite a few injuries, mate.
Yeah, we would probably sign someone as a backup keeper. I think the lad at Plymouth is the someone he's got a year left on his contract. He's highly rated, so I think it would probably go in for him.
Okay,
So
good
I mean, you've got
knowledge.
to sign a number two, aren't you? Like you're not just going to sell your backup goalkeeper and not get
So
one in.
this is important for fantasy because I think a lot of people don't know the answer on the Palace keeper, and if they knew which one, would be quite happy just to go, "Yep, I'm going to hang my hat on him," because all the 4-5s have good potential, but none of them feel great. If
Yeah.
if there's the solver here for the Palace answer, a lot of people are going to buy into this. So percentage chance for you of Henderson starting game week 1.
Oh, game week one, I'd say it's 90 plus. But then if you ask me, game week eight, it's probably more like 75, 60. Because he could chuck one in,
Understand?
couldn't he? He could chuck one in. But I think he's first choice at the moment. He's got the shirt. And then there's also a decent chance that Johnston moves on. And if Johnston moves on, we'll sign a number two. We won't sign another number one.
Yeah, I
So
understand. That would make sense. I mean, you're very blessed to have two certainly Premier League standard goalkeepers there. That's a strong pairing of two.
yeah, well, we
I mean,
weren't saying that last September. Last September, we were complaining that we'd spent 20 million on a keeper who we didn't need.
yeah,
But
when I say blessed, what I mean is they're both there. It was an odd one in the sense of you had a good goalkeeper there, was very much my view, and you bought someone. Neither of those two want to be number twos. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
They should
yeah,
both be
definitely.
Premier League number ones. I can certainly agree with that. Okay, so Dean Henderson's ownership about to rise, I think. Um, there's some players with some interesting ownership. We've spoken about Eze, and his ownership, which I understand why Eze's ownership's higher. I'd just be very cautious of it personally. Joachim Andersen's ownership's really high. Got an answer for that?
Well, it's probably just a legacy of some casuals getting him in because last season he scored a couple of goals early on, didn't he? And we had a few clean sheets. He scored the goal, Man United. He scored against Brentford away, actually, first game of the season. So maybe people have long memories for him slide tackling the goalkeeper and scoring.
Yes.
But yeah, so he is good for a few goals. But when we've moved to three at the back, sometimes he did go on a bit of a marauding run and have a long shot, and he hasn't really done that since we've gone to three at the back. So it is just set pieces. 4.5 million. He's probably, I mean, picking a centre back who's going to play alongside him. So we've got Munoz and Mitchell are both five, aren't they? And he's 4.5. So if you want the Palace defence as like an outfield player, if you're not going for the keeper because you're not sure who's going to start at centre back, I said we're probably signing a centre back to replace Guehi, who probably is moving on. Will Riad start? Will Richard start? So yeah, Andersen is the one who, if you're buying a Palace defender who's 4.5, Andersen's probably the guy you get.
Anderson is your one. I guess because I know why the answer is of the ownership. So he's in sort of circa near 23% teams at the moment. So coming up towards a quarter. Got 16 more FPL points last year than any other defender priced at 4.5, which is
Mm.
quite clear that a lot of people, who's the highest scoring 4.5 from you probably picked near enough your 11 by this stage. Oh, Anderson definitely got the most points last year. Stick him in. And he's not a bad pick. I just
No,
don't think most of us would foresee him being in a quarter of teams, and I don't see him in that many teams on social media, for example.
no, not in their sort of highly engaged bubble. I think they'll be going for the wing backs, wouldn't
Yeah, I would imagine so. But he is a reasonable pick. And to clarify, you're saying the best of the 4.5s
they? Yeah, for us,
for
definitely.
you. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. Would you prefer him to Henderson or not if people want to make that decision?
I would probably go with Anderson. Yeah, because I think we dovetail quite well with Everton and also possibly Brentford's another one where over the first 5 or 6 games you can sort of where we've got difficult fixtures, they've got easier fixtures. I definitely think that's the case for Everton because I think I've gone with Anderson and Mikalenko because I think when we've got a tricky game, they've got a good game and
Yeah,
vice
Everton
versa.
especially. I mean, in five, you've got Man United at home, Brentford have got Tottenham away, so I think that would still be yourselves.
Yeah, probably. That was a clean sheet last time, I guess.
Villa might be another one that might cover okay because they've got that good run, sort of 3 to 6, haven't they? So when you play Chelsea United, I think if you went for a Villa player, you're definitely avoiding that. But if you go to Villa player, you might end up picking a Villa player all through 3 to 6, looking at their four fixtures. Yeah,
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 so some people might be looking at Munoz and Mitchell, but then going, I don't want to spend that money on a Palace defender, but I want to cover it. So then they go for probably Anderson.
yeah. Another one that might cover you actually Southampton,
Yeah.
possibly if Matt gives us good info on. There's got to be a 4.0 starter there, I think, at Southampton. Whether you want to go down that route is up to people to decide. It's interesting you say Anderson over Henderson, because I think when I've asked a lot of the other correspondents that question, they revert to the goalkeeper. And we've just said that the goalkeeper might be the 4.5 solution here. So that's really interesting. You spoke about Munoz playing pretty much every game if he's available. Does the same apply to Tyreek Mitchell?
Yeah, probably. That's probably because we've been linked with left wing backs. So it's the manager has said about him that he is someone who has like the most motivation to improve in the team. He's one of the best one-on-one defenders as a fullback in the league. He'll obviously be very disappointed he didn't make the England squad. No, playing a right back ahead of him. But he is getting into those positions. He scored against West Ham in like 30 seconds into the game or something pre-season. But he's never got that sort of, it's just not instinct for him when he gets into those positions to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think most Palace fans would be questioning whether he is going to get a lot of goals and assists in a season as a wing back. Then again, I said Mateta wouldn't score any goals, so maybe I'm the right person to listen to on that. I think we're also possibly linked with signing another left wing back to challenge with him. Um, I don't know who we'll end up signing. We're linked with Kostic at Juventus, who has worked with the manager before, and he's maybe a more attacking wing back. So it's difficult to say on the 7th of August. We were talking 1st of September. I could maybe say, yeah, Mitchell's going to play 38 games. Historically, he's played 38 games and all the cup games. And, he's just played every minute. He doesn't tend to get injured. So he's trustworthy in that respect that he's a steady Eddie.
I take it Munoz over Mitchell for you for fantasy.
For me, yeah. Yeah. And I think he's he is more likely to get booked though. He got sent off in the semi-final of the Copa America, and he's got that in his game where he will kick people sometimes.
Yeah, I often mention a moment that they've, I think actually really helped, ironically, really helped Brennan Johnson's season where they were both after each other as well. I saw that right in front of my eyes towards the end of the game at White Hart Lane in March. He's got
Well,
that in him.
yeah, well, he's from Medellin, which is a rough town.
I've never
If
heard
you've
of it,
watched
mate, but thanks
if
for
you
that.
watch the first season of Narcos, if you want to
Okay.
know Pablo Escobar, City, Medellin. So yeah, he's got that in his locker anyway.
He's also got goals in his locker as well, mate.
Yeah, when we signed him, I was looking at his shot map from the Belgian league, and I was like, "Look, it's the Belgian league. Is it going to transfer over?" But he gets into so many positions to take shots on. I remember I actually went with him over Mateta for the double, which scuppered a lot of people's seasons. It scuppered mine. And that chance at the far post against West Ham, where
Own
I
goal,
think it
wasn't
ended
it?
up, yeah, and I was
Yeah.
just like, it's gone in. Give it to him. Give it to him. But yeah,
He
he's inside the 6 yard box as a right back.
Yeah, he feels a little bit. You would have probably heard me say this throughout, particularly the first half of last season. The Porro goal is coming, and
Yeah.
it didn't for quite a while. The positions that Munoz gets into, it's got to come. But I say he's got goals in him. We haven't seen one yet.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not like Porro. You see, Porro picks up the ball sometimes outside the box and has a go. He was at Burnley in the cup, was it? He scored that goal.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
friendly goal he scored
Ironically,
the
it,
other day.
it came in the FA Cup rather than the
Yeah,
league.
exactly. Yeah. Right, he did it in the friendly the other day. I don't think Munoz has got that in his locker. But what he's probably got that Porro doesn't have is he is a bit bigger and he has got a record of scoring headers. So if he's at the far post for a cross, he will potentially do something.
Yeah, I recall seeing him score a goal for Colombia that was played at West Ham, I think, which
Possibly.
is like a certainly a goal on the back post, cross from the left hand side. Like he really does arrive and wants to get in the box if the ball's coming from the far touchline, he will
I
get
think he scored
involved.
against Brazil in Copa America as well. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals.
I think it's really positive from what you've said on Sarr, not going to be someone who's going to get in his way. I think that's important that he's not looking up and say, oh, okay, this lad's holding the touchline in front of me, just give it to him. Because for fantasy, you want Munoz to have that open space, I think, that
Yeah.
makes him think I've got to get into the box.
Well,
I
those
don't know
those
if because Olise being left footed as well,
yeah.
although he can go down the touchline, obviously wants to go inside quite a lot.
Well, those two positions are both tens, right? So you can look at them and think, oh, there's a winger playing there. Um, I don't know. So the game's changed. You don't get many wingers that hug the touchline. I guess Sarr might be one, but we play sort of two tens. There might be inside forwards at certain points in time. There is a degree of movement there, but yeah, Munoz will be the one providing the width on that side, and he gets into the box on the far post. So
But having been burnt by Munoz last season, is he going in for you or not?
I had him in. I've taken him out. Given what I heard from Ricky the other day, I might put Porro back in, and then that might mean I've got a bit more money to upgrade someone. So
Got a solution here, Rory.
what?
Go with both.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, I
Have
think.
some fun, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they both are those kind of players.
Play it your way, kids, but enjoy the game. I can certainly see the appeal of Munoz. I think those attacking returns will go out. I still think we can trust in you defensively. And one of the reasons I think we can trust in you defensively is a big potential returnee for people that I think people are ignoring is obviously Jake Doucoure. Is he ready to go, Rory?
Yeah, it's like a new signing, isn't it, James?
Yeah.
But we will he will start, I think. Lerma's obviously coming back a bit late because he was in Copa America final. I do think at the start of the season it'll be Doucoure and Wharton. Hughes might actually start the first game of the season because Doucoure may have picked up a slight injury, but he's just coming back from snapping his Achilles. My memory of that is Eze got that exact same injury and it did take him a while to come back. but he offers us so much. He's a fantastic footballer, Doucoure. I think a lot of people maybe underrated him because the season that he was at Palace was Vieira's second season when Roy came in at the end. That was the only full season he's played for us. He got injured um, last season, so he didn't get the big bounce at the end of that season. But he's not been in a Palace team that's performed well. But he's probably, is he our best player? He's up there. He's not as technically good as an Olise, but in his position, I'd say he's as good as Guehi. He's as good as a. He's that standard of player, and him coming in, he's going to offer so much control in midfield. I think him and Wharton in there is just going to be exceptional in terms of ball retention. And I think in a lot of games, they're both very solid defensively, and Lerma can come in and play that role as well. But I think against some teams previously, when we've come up against the low blocks, the issue hasn't necessarily been not having the players to unlock a defense, but it's been being able to maintain a sustained attack. When the ball comes back, just recycling possession and being patient with it and
Side to
keeping
side.
20, 30. Yeah. And those two in there, Wharton and Doucoure, is going to be absolutely phenomenal against a lot of teams that maybe show less ambition.
That sounds like a beautiful balanced midfield team, mate.
Yeah.
Really, really does. Do you expect them to start game with one Doucoure?
Yeah. I think
Okay,
they're just I
who's
think they're
ready?
just being cautious with him because I think he picked up a knock, then played the rest of the half, then came off. I think it was the first half against West Ham. He came off at half time. I think they're just being cautious. I think, you got someone coming back from injury pre-season, you wouldn't risk him. If it'd been a league game, he might have played on.
Okay. Mateta. Is he definitely going to miss game week 1? Is this a certainty?
Uh, I mean, it's not a certainty. When's the Olympics final?
I think it's this weekend, isn't it? I think.
I He could just come back and play. I think if it's up to him, he probably will just play. I think um yeah, he's that kind of personality where he'll just want to keep going because he's in such good form and it's the form of his life, isn't it? 13 goals in 13 games. He's got four now in the Olympics.
He's only had 3, 4 months of form in his career, I think, for him.
Yeah. I don't know where Dougie Freedman sees these players because Surlot, we got he went to Turkey, scored a load of goals, then did nothing for 3 seasons, and then he was La Liga top scorer last season, and everyone's like, "Who's Alex Surlot?" But he was
I
awful for
think for the
us.
FPL circles, I think that's Lord Sorloff. I think has been mentioned.
Yeah, so but he does seem to have an eye for a striker who can just pull it out of the bag. One thing I would say, right, in terms of Mateta not necessarily having that form previously, Roy came in and he plays a certain style of football, and he turned Benteke. Benteke in his first season for us was 1 and 2, which is difficult for people to remember because he played the rest of the time under Roy and was poor. Surlot didn't look very good under Roy. Mateta didn't look very good under Roy. But then Glasner's come in. Mateta started scoring goals. Um, so I'm optimistic that he'll maintain it, but I still don't believe that what happened last season happened because it's still Mateta. Like I just saw clips going up on Twitter from what he was like in January and February of this year, where the ball would just dribble across the 6 yard box, it would deflect off his shin and then go out for a corner or go out for a goal kick. And it was like I can't believe it's the same player who's doing this.
Do we know he's been tested? Because he does look a very different player to what we'd seen over the last few years.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
crazy.
he's a beast, isn't he?
He's
So
enormous.
if you can get him in confidence and in form, and I think the striking thing as well is like the finishing. He's scoring some really good goals where he's getting in
Yeah.
position. You think he's going to score.
And
Um,
headers. He
yeah,
looked like he couldn't win a header for two
despite being a
years.
big lad.
Yeah, exactly. He couldn't jump. He was being out jumped by people who are 5'5", and he's like 6'5".
It's worth saying it was big over XG performance in the end. 16 goals
Yeah.
scored against sort of just under 11 XG. It's one of
But
the
he,
bigger
d-
ones in the league.
yeah, but he doesn't need to do that. Like, he doesn't have to score 13 goals in 13 games to be a good striker for Palace and to be a good FPL asset. I suppose he's
No,
7.5 now, but if he got
I'm
13 goals in the whole season, I'd be happy.
well, I was going
You
to say
know?
if you get 16 again, he's pretty good
Yeah.
value at 7.5. 7 assists in that as well. So I mean, it's 23 attacking returns from 25 starts. I realize there's some returns as
Last
a
season,
substitute there.
the whole thing. Yeah.
23 returns from 2,274 minutes,
And it is pretty
which,
much when Glasner came in that it exploded. So it does
yeah,
correlate with a change.
it's roughly about 3/5 of a season. So, I mean, across a whole season, we'd be looking at some very serious numbers here.
Yeah.
He's basically doing a return every sort of just under 100 minutes.
Well, if he at the Olympics, if he got and he'd not scored a goal, I wouldn't be so optimistic because that could have been, who did we have? We had Jesse Lingard was brilliant for a bit, Joe Willock was brilliant for a bit, Almiron was brilliant for a bit, Solly March was brilliant for a bit. And all of those players had their sort of spells and then they sort of went away and they were like brilliant FPL assets. But if you didn't get them in at the right time, it wasn't so great. But he scored a couple of goals there in the Olympics, which are very good goals. He scored against Argentina, header at near post from a corner, which was very good. The goal against New Zealand was really good. And then he's just scored in the last minute. Okay, I think it was Egypt. So it's not necessarily like scoring against Brazil or something, but he scored in the last minute and then scored in the first couple of minutes of extra time to basically take them through to the gold medal match. So he's just won them a medal, basically. He's on great form. It's incredible. I have no idea who this player is.
But you can't start with him, right?
No, because I'm pretty sure Edouard will start. The first game. He looks sharp, by the way. He scored a few goals pre-season. But yeah, there's no argument to get Edouard in because even if he does score goals, we're not going to leave Mateta out the team.
The other difficulty for Mateta, despite the forwards in that bracket are so interesting this year. There's a little bit of it's kind of up in the air at the moment on Solanke, but even if he stays with Bournemouth, like Solanke at the same price, has obviously shown his consistency last season as well, right?
Yeah, I'd
And
say
I
he's
think
more
you're still
consistent.
drawn. You're more drawn to Solanke. I think if you're thinking longer term, you almost know that Solanke is very capable of doing it again. We're
Yes,
not
yeah,
sure
I'd
if
agree.
Mateta is just still in this amazing purple patch. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I would say Solanke is probably someone who's more likely to do it for 38 games in a season. But Mateta, if you've got the right 10 games, might be more of an explosive asset, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I don't disagree with that,
I
mate.
think I'm just looking at the solvers and like the points for some of the statistical models say that Solanke will outscore Mateta. So I think they
I
sort
think
of
that's
agree with
right.
that.
Yeah, I think that's right as a longer term assessment. Plus, Mateta's expected minutes are obviously going to be really low at the start, so there'll
Yeah.
be an impact of that obviously as well currently.
Yeah, I'd say
Okay,
you can't really bring him in with any certainty that he'll play until probably after the first international break. And then maybe then you can sort of he'll probably be back in the team then. And we'll be a bit more settled as well with the whole Eze maybe signing a replacement.
okay. Three very quick ones for you, just as a summary. Jordan Ayew 5.5. I've seen him in a few teams.
He'll probably start the season. He's been linked with the move away. I wouldn't get him in partly for that reason, partly because it's Jordan Ayew.
Same price as Kamada, which you obviously prefer, right?
Yeah, definitely
Okay,
100% Kamada.
fine. Jeffrey Schlapp at 5.
I think Schlupp is going to be used as someone to come off the bench. Like he scored a brilliant goal against Fulham, and he scored a brilliant goal pre-season. I think it was against Wolves. He'll be someone who comes off the bench who is good for a goal, but he'll come on for the last 20 minutes if we're not winning. So it's no guarantee of anything.
Okay, and a couple of young players, Matthias Francha and Rak-Saki, both in at 4.5. They feel like the two players who feel a little bit like Bergvall to me, in the sense that there could be something further down the line. But I guess neither player is in with a chance to start in game week 1.
No, probably not. Francis had his injuries, so I think he will be someone who again gets used off the bench, and maybe if he picks up some form, might get a shirt later on in the season. I think Raksaki will go out on loan. I think he's linked with. I mean, he was linked with Southampton on a permanent transfer. I think he's been linked with QPR, Sheffield United, so I don't think he'll be here at the end of August.
If Rak-Saki did go to Southampton in the next week, does that become like an immediate interest as an eighth attacker for you or not?
Or
For
if he went to
Rak-Saki,
Southampton,
yeah.
yes, I don't know whether they would necessarily start him or whether they'd see him as a long-term prospect because it'd be a permanent signing for them rather than a loan.
Okay.
He was brilliant at Charlton. He should have gone out on loan last season. And I thought the plan was he'd go out on loan, do well in the championship, and then he'd replace Elise when he goes this summer. But he's not. He had injuries last year. He should have gone out on loan. But
Okay. Predicted 11 for game week 1, please, mate.
right, for game week 1, I've got Munoz basically coming back in and playing. So I think it'll be Henderson, Richards, Anderson, Riad. Mitchell and Munoz as wing backs, Doucoure, Wharton, Sarr, Kamada, Edouard. And then I think Eze will probably come off the bench in that game and then start the following week.
Okay, so you don't fit as a starts game week 1.
I don't think so because we've not seen him yet. But then,
But you've got Munoz predicted to start. I guess that's more about what you've got replacing, right?
and also Munoz played Copa America and he actually started the games, whereas Eze was training all summer, but he wasn't necessarily starting the game. So it's like match fitness, and then he's taken a couple of weeks off. Whereas Munoz has actually played those games maintains match fitness and then goes on holiday for a couple of weeks.
I guess there must be a small doubt on Munoz starting though.
Yeah, there is a small doubt. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll know more this weekend because we've got a friendly this weekend.
Yeah,
So
sure. And any love for Edouard as a very short-term punt at 5.5?
it would be very short term. I think he might play the first four games, but when you suggested that
Wow.
Mateta might come straight back in, if that's something. But yeah, Edouard, I think will probably start the season for us. But when you said Mateta come straight back in, I was like, yeah, Mateta is that kind of character where he would just want to come back and start if he does well. So
So for someone bench boosting in game week 1 and looking to wildcard in game week 2, you would say no to Edouard.
for game week one, yes, I think because he'll play and he scored some goals and he
So you
looked good.
think he'd be okay to go with?
Yeah, if you look at the goal against West Ham where he makes how much did they sign Kilman for? It's about 40 million quid, and he makes him
Don't
look like he's
laugh
one of
at
the youth
West
academy
Ham fans,
graduates.
mate. That's what I'm here for.
But Edouard, he scored a very good goal, and I think look, he's always had that in him. He just doesn't necessarily suit Glasner's style of play. I don't think he's not doesn't run around and press. He won't get the shirt, but game week one he'll start.
Okay. Where do you think you finish?
I think I put 11th on the prediction, did I?
You went 10th.
Okay, 10th. Yeah, I think we'll probably do that.
Here's an interesting question for you then. How many of the correspondents do you think have predicted you to finish bottom half?
Bottom half. 11.
6.
6.
Every prediction for you is between 8th and 12th, and there are lots of 9s and 10s in there. In fact, as an
Yeah.
overall average table, the correspondents think that you will be the best of the rest and finish 9th.
Okay. Right. Yeah, we could do that. But I still don't know who's going to be playing for us in like 2 weeks' time. So
No, I get that. Maybe correspondents are more aware of things like, oh, you haven't played with Guehi in that period at the end. Okay,
maybe, yeah.
there are two new attacking players in the squad currently in Sarr and Kamada for the loss of Olise. And you're
Yeah.
saying if Eze goes, money will get spent. I mean, obviously, if Eze goes, that's obviously it. You can't replace that. You can replace
Yeah.
it, but you're not going to get a player as good, that's ready and knows the league
Yeah.
straight away. So
We'd get the Eze. We'd probably sign another player that was like when we signed Eze, like 4 seasons ago, Eze, rather than 2024 Eze.
my instinct is on Eze at the moment is that he'll stay. Just because I find it difficult to foresee that you're just going to get ripped of Olise, Eze, and Gay all in one go. So
Yeah,
harsh if that happens.
if they can resist it, but if he's got a buyout clause and someone meets the terms of the buyout clause, then you don't really get a choice. I
No,
think
I hear you.
they knew that Guehi was going. I think they knew that probably January. He probably told them he's as much as anything else, as much as I like him as a footballer, I do fundamentally think he's a decent person. So I think he probably has told them, look, I want to leave the club, and then he's got done well for England, so he has got that interest from those type of clubs who could come and get him.
I think he's shown himself to be a great person when he was interviewed during the tournament for England, mate, and he acquitted himself absolutely brilliantly, mate. He made everybody proud. Even when England were in low moments, people were still going, Marc Guehi's doing really well. Yeah, he was great, and I think people forget that he basically didn't play in nearly
Yeah,
all of the second half of the season because it's at Palace, right? Oh, John Stones is struggling, Luke Shaw's struggling. It was the same for Marc Guehi, so his performances were remarkable. Cheers, Rory. Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Now, if you want to get through London in rush hour, it's hard work. So, how would you get to Fulham, Rory? Well, actually, you'd have to get on an aeroplane because you're on the other side of the world, aren't you? But
yes,
you'll basically get a train in. You could go back to sort of London Bridge, get the District line towards Putney Bridge. If you drive it at night, it'd take you about half hour. But if you do it during the day, it might take you over an hour. Next up on Correspondent Week in the opener for day 4, it's a Correspondent Week debut and a Correspondent debut for our new Fulham correspondent, Lewis James. Rory, thank you so much, mate. Very best of luck for the new season. Cue music, please, man child.